How serious was that move? Man, oh man, I could take a few more of those. And Boogie hammers it on the run. Somebody woke up Boogie. Well timed.
You watch Demarcus Cousins play, you see all the talent, you see the numbers. Not too many big guys at his size is that agile, that mobile, can shoot the three, put the ball on the floor, get to the basket.
He could be the best big man in the NBA. He got so much physical talent.
Boogie for three. Unbelievable.
Left going to the rim and dunked it on a wind-up right-hand finish.
And Demarcus Cousins can't go. He's holding that left lower leg area in the area of his Achilles.
It's one of the most unique free agent situations we've seen in a lot of years.
I'm a warrior.
In gigantic news, Demarcus Cousins has agreed to a one-year, $5.3 million deal with the defending champion Golden State Warriors.
No dropping me to the ground, 'cause it's going down undefeated.
Apparently nobody else wanted Demarcus Cousins. He didn't get one single offer.
Well, my main goal is to win a championship. That's what I'm signing up for.
When the injury happened, he's getting ready to sign a near max contract. So think about that.
Look at the work Boogie has put in just to come back. Think about the work ethic it takes to get all the way back physically from where he was.
I'm improving each and every day. I'm getting strong each and every day. And, it's just a matter of time before I'm back on the floor.
We're definitely excited to have him. He's been working hard. It's been a long year for him. I'm looking forward to just seeing him out on the floor, just doing something that he loves again.
You can shoot, you can space the floor, you can do it all. He's a monster on the boards. He's going to be great.
It'll be a lot of emotion, honestly. And, I don't think anybody could ever really understand this, and I don't really expect them to unless they've experienced it themselves.
This is something that other teams have never had to worry about with Golden State. They can now actually produce offense from the inside out with a true big.
Maybe Boogie is the wrinkle in the injection of energy that this Warriors team is really looking for this season.
I'm excited to see what we look like once DeMarcus gets his feet underneath him. I think we got a chance to be really good.
Undefeated.
Hey everybody, welcome into Game Time Live, presented by State Farm, the TGI edition. I'm Matt Weiner, Sekou Smith right there, the Monsignor, David Griffin right over there. We'll get deep into Boogie Cousins' fit and his new Warriors family as they welcome their new Cuz tonight. DeMarcus makes his Golden State debut as the champs start a 5-game road trip in LA against the Clippers. Here's Cuz on returning to action with his new team and a new chapter nearly a year after he tore his Achilles.
Honestly, I'm just happy to be back on the floor. I'm not really going out with, outside of winning the basketball game. That's probably my only goal tonight. Go in and play hard, get my feet underneath me, and just really realize this is the last step of the process. So. The rehab process. So, it's been a long journey. I'm in the last phase of it. Like I said, I'm just extremely happy to be back on the floor.
They laid out a minutes number for you tonight, a pattern, substitution pattern kind of thing?
No, not really. They kind of mentioned an idea, but not really a set number. So, but I think they'll play me in spurts. That's something they have mentioned. When I'm gassed, they'll pull.
What do you expect some from me?
I won't be out there playing 30 minutes.
With the new system, how are you feeling now that you're back up to full speed or wherever in terms of comfortability and just getting out there and playing with 5 guys?
Well, me finding my rhythm individually is going to be hard enough, but it's a great group of guys. They've been supportive of me through this whole process. I don't think it'll change once we step on the floor. But we all understand the situation, and I think they'll help, guide me through the rest of this process.
Do you feel like the coaches are going to let you have free reign, let you do everything that you can do immediately, that they'll be able to fit that in?
I don't know about all of that. But, I'll come in and play my part, do what I can to help the team win.
Demarcus, what are your expectations in fitting into whatever pace the team is playing?
Like I said, I don't really have any expectations besides, just helping the team win. As far as the pace goes, I got to get back used to the NBA pace in general, not just the team's pace. It's one thing to be scrimmaging against coaches or G League players or whatever the case may be, but actually being the game set, that's just a whole nother element. So be patient with me.
Can you get a feel with teammates in practice, or does that have to happen in a game to actually get a chemistry with guys?
It'll definitely take some time with in-game play, but like I said, it's one element to practice and scrimmage, but to be in an actual game situation, that's just a whole other type of element.
Well, we can't overstate what this guy's coming back from, and I know there's going to be instant judgment, analysis, criticism. We're either going to be at the end of the night unbeatable or in big trouble. But we know the drill. When a guy comes to a new team, it takes time for him to get comfortable with his teammates. And when a guy's coming off an injury, it takes time to really get your rhythm. So that's the biggest thing we're looking at. It's just trying to ease him back in, give him some confidence, and find a comfort zone early on, and then over the coming weeks, he'll find his rhythm.
So with the job that he's done, the work he's done to get back, what do you hope this day and what do you hope this game is for him?
I just want him to enjoy being back out on the floor more than anything. It's easy to get caught up in everything other than what really matters, which is a player in the prime of his career having a really big injury and now trying to come back from it. So we want him to enjoy the process. We want him to be able to play through the inevitable frustration that's going to come from being out for so long, having to face the speed of the NBA as opposed to the scrimmage season that he just got through with our coaches and film crew. Obviously, going to be different and a lot different. So we just want him to enjoy it and be patient. We'll be patient with him and we'll help him along.
So this is the starting lineup that Steve Kerr can roll out tonight. 25 combined All-Star selections between the 5 All-Stars who will start the game tonight in L.A. against the L.A. Clippers. But, Griff, you know as well as anybody, a fantasy lineup doesn't always work, and that's true in most sports. But we'll get to the long-term sort of chemistry issues and rotations and all that stuff. But just for tonight, are you more interested in the fit or how Cuz looks on the floor physically?
I think how he looks just for tonight would be the thing that I care about. The way they use him will be meaningful as well. If he does, in fact, play in bursts, then you can sort of assume from that the sports science department in Golden State is sort of overseeing this return to play protocol. If he were to go out there and just be Boogie all of a sudden and play his normal minutes, that'd be even harder for them in terms of assimilating him into the group. So I think it works out well for everybody that he is coming back from such a major injury. We're about to find out if you can have too much of a good thing, Sekou.
Yeah.
What he brings to the table is not what they lack. So it'll be really interesting. And I love Steve Kerr's comment. We're either going to be in really big trouble or we're going to be off to the races, and there'll be no in between.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what kind of sweet spots he can find in a crowded starting 5 where, everybody's a threat. Draymond, as much as anybody, you would think would have a huge adjustment to make with Boogie coming on, but just where do you find those sweet spots in the offense, particularly if you're Boogie Cousins, to be effective but not be overbearing, to not be so deliberate about trying to find your own rhythm that you take away from the group. And I'm guarantee you that's on his mind as well. He's probably trying to figure out, how do I do this without making a mess of what's going on, which is fantastic. I know we tend to think the sky's falling if the Warriors aren't undefeated, basically at this time of year. The media is, pulling their hair out, but they're fine. I mean, they showed us the other night that there's still plenty of distance between them and whoever the challengers are supposed to be, Denver, namely, in the Western Conference. So now how do you do this if you're Boogie and do it subtly? Do it without disrupting the flow of a team that, let's be honest, doesn't actually need you in the way that we think about getting a player of this caliber back into your lineup for the first time all year would mean to other teams.
Well, in every possible way, he needs them more than they need him, and that includes big picture in terms of his next contract, his career, etc. He's got every incentive to not only play well, but to fit in with this team over the next few months before the postseason. It's interesting, though. They're doing better than fine right now. I mean, they've won 6 in a row, 8 of their last 9. They're averaging 138 points a game over their last 4 games. Offensively, they don't need another scorer, and at their best, it's a team where the ball is popping all over the place. Cousins is a good passer, maybe not an elite passer, but a good passer certainly. How does he fit in best?
Well, I think what's really interesting in this circumstance is it's going to get worse before it gets better. There's no way Boogie can show up, become Boogie over time, and not detract a little bit from what they do initially. He has to. And where that becomes really problematic and where I say we're going to find out whether or not you can have too much of a good thing, Klay Thompson and Draymond Green have found themselves. These last 9 games, Klay Thompson is on an altogether different level in terms of what he's producing. We see here Demarcus's timeline in terms of his return to play. During this period of time, particularly the last 9 games, what you've seen is Golden State is the best version of themselves they've been the entire time that Boogie has been there. And it's because Klay Thompson is back to being the Klay Thompson that can't miss. He's making 49% of his threes in the last 9 games. Draymond Green is making 38% of his threes after making 22% before that.
Right.
And here's the graphic we have of the breakdown. The impact he has on these guys, when it took them this long to find their stride, that's what's really interesting. Look at how good Draymond and Klay have been, how much they're contributing to what they're doing. It has to get worse before it gets better when you're playing that well.
Sure.
The one other guy that nobody talked about in this entire scenario, what does this do to Kevon Looney? You know, a guy you've leaned on throughout the course of this season, early when Damian Jones was in the starting lineup and playing well early. Kevon Looney was your security blanket.
Right.
You had to go to him after Jones gets hurt. How does this change his role, and does it do anything to his demeanor in terms of the minutes you're going to get out of him with that second unit, which should be significant? You know, if you can bring him in with that second group and get quality minutes out of a guy who's basically been your starter for most of this year. But nobody's talking about Looney right now, and I'm curious how he responds to this change.
It's a good question, and I might argue that Looney is a better fit with the starting unit than Demarcus Cousins. Is it a sure thing? And if it is the medical protocol that's requiring Cuz to start because of the warm-up, for instance, is it a sure thing in your mind that when he gets his footing, no pun intended, that he'll be a starter for the rest of the season?
I would assume so. I would think that coming off the bench is not something that he was really open-minded to. I'm going to guess that that's the case, having no knowledge of the situation. You could certainly make a case that coming off the bench makes it possible for them to get another level off of their bench that they don't have.
And play completely
Depth is not a
differently,
strength
right?
of this team.
Yeah.
And you could give him that second unit and run things in a completely different fashion. I'll tell you, Sekou, the one thing that really stands out to me, and it's meaningful that we're watching Rockets highlights here. James Harden became a phenomenon the last, 15 games?
Yeah.
Since Chris Paul went out?
Right.
Because there's no misunderstanding. James is going to take all the shots. He's going to get all the usage, and everyone on the court is going to continue to play with the same zeal defensively and do their job. They don't care if James takes all the shots. Well, these guys were already spitting the bit a little bit earlier when KD and Draymond and Steph couldn't find their rhythm together. Everybody wanted to point fingers a little bit. Now, Steph never does because I think he's a perfect leader in that situation. But they obviously were struggling to find themselves. Now that they're finally in the rhythm they're in and everyone's willing to play the role they're playing, you're going to ask Draymond Green, your dirt-working overachiever, yeah, I know you really enjoy playmaking, but we're going to take that away from you too, and you think he's going to play defense with the same zeal? It's going to take some time. They'll get there because they're all about the right things. It could get worse, and it could get a lot worse before it gets better. So what Steve Kerr said, we can't panic here. And I know Warriors fans won't because it's like a given in their mind that they're going to win.
They've reached that point. Time for the road ahead presented by Dodge. Tonight is the first of a 5-game road trip, and I don't know if it was at all purposeful or not, but it seems to me that's probably a good thing for the Warriors to introduce Cuz on the road as they go out on this trip, work him into the rotation here over the next couple of weeks. Starting with the Clippers tonight. Remember the last time they were in LA to face the Clippers, you had the Durant, Draymond Green dust up. Monday, they stick around for LA. Then they head east, Washington, Boston, and Indiana.
It's an interesting stretch, too. None of these are gimme games. You know, all of these games that they're getting ready to step into should be competitive, you know, raucous environments. You know, you got the world champs coming to your building. If it these other teams, you want to take a shot at them, and you get a shot at them with, Boogie in the lineup and them trying to adjust and make that transition. So very tricky instances for the Warriors here. I also think we haven't mentioned this as much. You got to be careful not to disrupt what Steph and KD have going right now, too, because they are probably playing as well as they have at the same time for this long a stretch since they've been together. You know, injuries or whatever else has always really interrupted that opportunity to see how they would fare. Steph's playing at a nuclear level, and KD's bananas, and nobody even discusses it.
Steph's hit 28 threes his last 3 games. It's the most in NBA history. He tied his own record.
Exactly. I mean, so you've got these two guys both playing at MVP level in their own right. And now you're asking everybody else to make way for another potentially dominant force. Somebody has to take a step back. And that's where the give and take is going to be interesting. I'm not letting Klay Thompson go back to wherever he was.
Right.
Klay has to stay aggressive and stay in a rhythm. You mentioned Draymond. That's the one guy you think to yourself, who can come out of that mix and allow Boogie opportunities to get to the spots and in the spaces that he likes? It's Draymond. And I don't want to lose Draymond either. So Steve Kerr's got a tough job ahead.
And it'll be fun, too, to think about Draymond and Boogie together. Denver right now is really zigging while everybody else zags by playing two bigs quite often. Jokic and Plumlee play high-low together. They're both making plays for each other.
Right.
Draymond Boogie high-low is really interesting when you run the guard split on one side, KD in the corner. But what that means is they all have to embrace there is no number one here. There's no number two here. It's whoever the ball happens to find that night. And if they play the way Steve Kerr wants to play, KD and Steph will be fine because they're truly transcendent. The people who get hurt the most by this are the people who need to be fed once in a while.
Right. Also be interesting to see what happens if they lose some of these games because things are disrupted. And these guys know well enough that it's hard to come back from an injury of that magnitude. I assume they'll, close ranks around Cuz. But what if he takes some heat? What's his reaction? How does that impact the team as well? Bunch of questions to be answered over the next few weeks with Demarcus Cousins, whose Warriors career begins tonight in L.A. Much more coming up here on this Friday night. It's Game Time Live, presented by State Farm. Victor Oladipo sits down with Roz Gold and Woody. We'll hear that conversation when we come back. Pacers were blown out by Philly last night. You saw that on TNT, but still sitting third in the Eastern Conference, 44 games into the season, thanks in large part to a healthy Victor Oladipo, who recently sat down with Roz Gold on Woody.
Victor Oladipo is just a fantastic basketball player.
He had a breakout year last year for the Pacers, and he looks great here in the season already.
Oladipo to the rim. Shake him up, Vic.
Here's Oladipo, 3 seconds.
Race up.
Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Victor Oladipo, this is your city.
What have you found it takes to bear the responsibility of being the leader and the face of this franchise?
A lot goes into it, you know what I mean? And too much is given, much is required. And I've been hearing that for every day for the past year. It's been tough, man. You gotta know what to say and when to say it, but at the same time, you gotta listen. I think being a leader is something that you have to learn how to do. There are natural born leaders, but there's some aspects of leadership that are things that you have to continuously learn from the people you surround yourself with, from your teammates. For me, I'm learning that every day. I'm learning my teammates. I'm learning what they like, what they dislike, and just about their everyday life. And also with leadership comes sacrifice for yourself, sacrificing your time, and doing whatever it takes to help your team win. And that's what I'm locked in and focused on.
You have a pretty balanced roster, a number of guys scoring in double digits. Does that balance kind of take the pressure off a little?
In general, yeah. I mean, it's hard to guard us. You can double me, but I'm throwing it to Domas, and Domas is throwing it to whoever else is open. Or I'm throwing it to Miles, and Miles is throwing it to whoever else is open, or they're shooting their shot. So we got a lot of depth, and we got a lot of good players who can make things happen. But I never had a lot of pressure on me to begin with. So whether they double me or not, I don't feel any pressure. I just got to go out there and play.
Has your team earned respect yet? What is the respect you feel your team deserves right now?
I mean, being with them every day, I believe we earn a lot of respect. We deserve a lot of respect, but I don't think guys give it to us, which is fine, you know. At the end of the day, everybody isn't going to respect you, no matter who you are, no matter what you do. Just focus on each other and continuing to get better. We know that we can play at a high level in this league. We know we can win at a high level in this league, and we just got to continue to keep proving it every day.
Mentioned the Pacers are third in the East right now, and as was discussed there, this is a deep basketball team. Victor Oladipo is obviously their best player. My question for you guys is this a better regular season team or playoff team? Because they don't necessarily have that superstar guy who scares you in a postseason scenario as good as Oladipo is.
I don't know if I agree with you about Oladipo. I think Oladipo is a guy that...
You think he's there?
I think he is a guy that in today's NBA, he's a problem in a playoff setting. And look, this is a league right now where you're either a super team or you're a team with quality depth and emerging stars that you're going to hope can carry you deeper into the postseason than they normally would. I think about Boston last year without Kyrie and Gordon Hayward. They relied on a similar formula, quality depth as opposed to one or two superstars carrying you. Denver has a team to me right now that's built exactly like that. So I'm not as concerned about the top end of the Pacers roster. I'm more concerned about is their quality depth what it needs to be for them to have a sustained playoff run.
So it's interesting. I think people lose sight of how good they were in the playoffs last year.
They were good,
They lost to Cleveland in 7 games. But I thought it was the toughest series Cleveland had until they made it to the finals, quite frankly.
Agreed.
The Pacers are a team, because they have to be better than the sum of their parts and they have to be on the same page, to some degree, they have to outwork you all the time. And over the course of an 82-game year, that's really difficult. I don't think they have the kind of margin for error to be a high 50s win team. I don't think they can be a 60-win team in terms of their margin for error and their star power. But in terms of their ability to lock in and prepare for a playoff opponent, the number of guys they have on their team, to your point about quality depth, who have basketball IQ, grit and toughness, and are willing to sacrifice for the greater good, is incredible. And their best player, Victor Oladipo, doesn't care anything at all about anything other than winning basketball games. And that puts you in really good stead come playoff time. I think Nate McMillan and his staff will do a great job preparing for series. I think they're a more dangerous postseason team than they are regular season.
Interesting. Yeah, they do have really good depth. I don't disagree with that at all. Trade deadline's coming up next month. Where should they be looking, if at all?
You know, it's interesting. I think the one thing for them, it's complicated with what they have. You don't have a lot of pieces there you can aggregate to go get another star-type player without sort of taking a step back in terms of how you really operate.
Yeah.
But they're a team that by design is going to overachieve. And that means all the pieces they have sort of have to fit together in lockstep. If I was going to bring in anything, and you could say this about any contender, I would want more veteran three-point shooting.
Yep.
Somebody who can actually make shots versus a good contest. But who doesn't want a 6'8" guy that can make threes?
Right,
So.
right.
Yeah, I think the same dilemma that the Pacers are going to have come trade deadline is one that's going to plague every other team around the league that's not the Warriors. And that is there one player out there that pushes us up to that very next level, whatever it is, if it's right,
and do they think they're good enough to get to that next level?
Exactly. And with a free agent summer coming up, Matt, where there's so many different, scenarios they could play out, I would imagine we're going to see a lot of teams very apprehensive about doing anything crazy because they know what could potentially be coming down the line. When things go haywire in the summer and if one player moves somewhere and it kind of sets the whole world on its axis, then we got an opportunity to do some things that we don't want to jeopardize at the trade deadline.
Well, to that end, though, Indiana's really interesting because they're not a team that's going to sit there and think they are a max free agent destination.
No. Right.
And they only have $60 million on the books for next year. So Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan have the ability to go into trade deadline right now, willing to potentially take some money into the future if it can be the right piece for them. And I'm going to throw out a name for you with no understanding of how they make the math work whatsoever.
Sure.
Marc Gasol, if he gets moved from Memphis, playing with that group of guys, playing with a big like Sabonis who knows how to play and can dribble, pass, and shoot, that would be a fascinating piece to put in there and to give Nate McMillan and see what he can do.
You talked about the Denver Nuggets zagging when everyone else is trying to zig. Indiana could definitely do that if Gasol's there with Turner or Sabonis on the floor with him. That would be
Well,
a
and
really
Turner
interesting
can
scenario.
space off of Gasol and vice versa.
Absolutely.
They'd be able to be really elite defensively
Right.
in the paint. Let's make it happen. I like it.
Sabonis is great off the ball. Gasol could.
And Indiana has already crashed the party in the Eastern Conference when we weren't expecting it. Nobody looked up and said, hey, there's going to be 5 teams in the East that you have to worry about in that top group, and Indiana's not the 5th team. Right now it's Boston.
Right.
So they gotta be very mindful of the fact that we talked about Golden State, and do you get worse before you get better with Boogie coming in? Well, if you make a move and you're one of these teams, does it set you back before it propels you forward?
Right.
And do you want to take that risk now when you're already in a really good position if you're Indiana?
If it propels you forward, because you never know when
you don't know.
roll the dice on these deals. Well, hopefully you have the day off Monday for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, which we have helpfully already planned for you. Wasn't that nice of us? The pair of NBA TV
Somebody
games,
did it.
Thunder and Knicks, Magic and Hawks, and then it's a TNT triple header, Pels, Grizz, Rockets, Sixers, and the Warriors in LA to take on the Lakers. Game time throughout the day, really, here on NBA TV, and then TNT takes over inside the NBA when the night ends.